So, if you've read DC for a while, you probably know the big players: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. But if you dig a little deeper, there's a whole layer of characters and worlds that don't get nearly enough attention. One of the most fascinating of these is New Genesis, part of Jack Kirby's Fourth World saga. This is the realm of the so-called New Gods, beings who are powerful, complex, and exist on a scale that's, well, let's just say it makes the Justice League look like a local sports team. New Genesis is the opposite of Apocalypse, the fiery dystopia ruled by Darkseid. It's bright, advanced, almost serene, but don't mistake it for a utopia. Its inhabitants, the New Gods, are warriors, thinkers, and leaders, and each has their own story, their own struggles. And yes, some of them have inherited conflicts that are bigger than most of the universe's problems. In this video, we'll walk through the major figures of New Genesis, explore what makes them tick, and look at the world they live in, from HighFather's leadership to Orion's complicated heritage to the cosmic thinkers like Metron who observe it all. If you're into DC lore, Kirby's designs, or just want to understand the logic and conflicts behind these characters, stick around. This isn't about hype or screaming. It's about explaining the world of New Genesis in a way that actually makes sense and maybe even makes it a little cooler than you thought.
All right, let's start with the place itself. New Genesis isn't just another planet or city. It's a whole world designed to feel larger than life. Jack Kirby imagined it as the antithesis to Apocalypse, bright, advanced, almost utopian on the surface. The architecture is impossible by human standards. Floating platforms, massive crystal structures, bridges made of energy, rivers of light, and it all exists on a scale that screams these are gods, not people. But underneath that beauty, there's order, hierarchy, and conflict, which makes the place feel real rather than just a shiny backdrop. The new gods who inhabit it reflect that duality. Some are warriors, some are philosophers, and some are leaders balancing morality with power. Think of it less as a static paradise and more like a high-stakes society where everything looks perfect until the next conflict erupts. New Genesis is governed by HighFather, the moral and political center, but the individual gods each carry responsibilities, skills, and personal struggles that affect the whole world. That makes the environment dynamic. It's visually stunning, but narratively rich. It's important to note the contrast with Apocalypse because it's central to understanding the New Gods. Apocalypse is fire, steel, oppression, and fear, the extreme of tyranny. New Genesis, on the other hand, represents freedom, light, and cooperation. But the two are inseparable in Kirby's cosmic storytelling. The worlds exist in constant tension, and much of New Genesis' narrative purpose comes from responding to or preparing for the inevitable clash with Darkseid and his forces. That tension is what makes these stories compelling. It's not just spectacle, there's a sense of real stakes. The people of New Genesis are more than their powers. Some, like Orion, bring internal conflict into the equation. Others, like Lightray, maintain optimism that keeps the society functioning. Then there are thinkers like Metron, whose detachment and observation offer a perspective on events that no one else could provide. The combination of these personalities against the backdrop of visually striking, morally aspirational world is what makes New Genesis so distinctive in the DC universe. Kirby's design philosophy also shows in the world itself. He wasn't just drawing a cool sci-fi setting. He was creating a mythological stage for gods, where visual design and story design work together. The scale, the architecture, and the cosmic energy all reinforce the stakes of the stories. Battles feel monumental, victories feel earned, and moral dilemmas feel weighty, all because the setting itself communicates that these characters exist on a higher plane than ordinary heroes.
Now that we've established the world of New Genesis, it's time to talk about the figure at the very top, HighFather, also known as Isaiah. If New Genesis were a government, he's both the president and the moral philosopher. But unlike human leaders, he's operating on a cosmic scale, with responsibilities that affect not just his people, but the entire balance of the fourth world. He's not just a strong leader, he's a strategist, a moral compass, and sometimes a reluctant wartime planner. HighFather's visual design says a lot about him. Tall, regal, flowing robes, a staff that channels cosmic energy. He looks like a mixture of a wise king, a futuristic sage, and someone who could punch a star if necessary. But beyond the visuals, his significance is in the choices he makes. Kirby wrote him as a character who constantly balances the ideals of New Genesis against the realities of living under the threat of apocalypse. He doesn't just fight battles, he anticipates them, negotiates them, and makes decisions that no one else could. One of the most significant elements of his story is his exchange of sons with Darkseid. HighFather gives Darkseid his son in return for Orion, Darkseid's own child. On the surface, this seems insane. Why would any parent willingly give up their child to an evil warlord? But HighFather sees the bigger picture. It's a strategic move designed to create a future in which the NewGods can maintain balance against Apocalypse's tyranny. This decision weighs heavily on him and sets the stage for Orion's entire story, which we'll get into shortly. It's not a perfect choice, but it's one that reflects the burdens of leadership in a world of gods. HighFather's powers are formidable but measured. He possesses superhuman strength, longevity, and a deep connection to the cosmic energy that powers New Genesis. He's also a skilled warrior, capable of defending his world directly if needed. But his real strength lies in his wisdom and judgment. He understands that battles are won not just with force, but with planning, diplomacy, and sometimes morally difficult sacrifices. Personality-wise, HighFather embodies patience and foresight. He's calm where others might panic, analytical where others might act impulsively. He carries the weight of an entire civilization, and that informs his decisions. He can be stern, but he's not tyrannical. He commands respect rather than fear. This makes him a counterbalance to the chaos of Orion's brooding and the youthful optimism of Lightray. In narrative terms, he anchors the moral and political structure of New Genesis, giving the audience a stable reference point in what could otherwise be an overwhelmingly cosmic story. HighFather also demonstrates the theme of sacrifice for the greater good, which recurs throughout the Fourth World. He makes decisions that might be unpopular, uncomfortable, or morally gray because he sees beyond immediate consequences. This isn't a perfect system. His choices create tension, especially in Orion, who struggles with the implications of being raised on Apocalypse. But it's this complexity that makes HighFather one of the most compelling figures in the Fourth World.
If HighFather is the calm, measured heart of New Genesis, then Orion is its beating drum of conflict. He's the son of Darkseid, traded away in the great pact we just talked about. Raised on New Genesis, Orion fights for the ideals of freedom and light. But here's the twist. Inside, he carries the rage, aggression, and darkness of his father's bloodline. That's why Orion is so fascinating. He's not just another warrior hero. He's a character built on tension, on the razor's edge between control and chaos. Orion is, in many ways, the frontline soldier of New Genesis. He's their protector, their war champion, the one who throws himself directly into combat against Apocalypse's forces. While others like Metron or HighFather play the long game, Orion is boots on the ground. He's the fist of New Genesis. And yet, every time he fights, he's also fighting himself, the inherited fury of Darkseid that simmers beneath his skin. This makes him a tragic figure. He wants to embody New Genesis's ideals, but he fears the darkness within him. Visually, Orion reflects this duality. His armor is sharp, heavy, practical, less elegant than his fellow NewGods. He carries the look of a warrior first, diplomat never. His astroglider, a flying chariot-like machine, is iconic. It's both a weapon and a symbol of his aggressive style. While Lightray streaks gracefully through the skies, Orion tears across them like a tank with rockets strapped to it. He's raw power, unrefined but effective. One of Orion's central struggles is identity.
Is he truly a new god of New Genesis, or is he just Apocalypse in disguise? HighFather raises him with love, but also with purpose. Orion is meant to be proof that even Darkseid's bloodline can be turned toward good. Orion accepts this role, but it eats at him. He feels like he has to constantly prove himself, to others and to himself, that he's more than just the spawn of evil. That internal war is as interesting as any physical battle he fights. Story-wise, Orion often represents the clash between New Genesis and Apocalypse in its most personal form. His battles against Darkseid aren't just cosmic warfare, they're deeply personal confrontations between father and son, ideology versus bloodline, freedom versus tyranny. Sometimes, Orion's rage makes him dangerously close to what he hates. There are stories where his methods feel harsher than his allies are comfortable with, showing that his darker heritage isn't just symbolic, it actively threatens to consume him. What makes Orion work as a character, though, is that he's not just doomed tragedy. He does find balance. He does fight for what's right. And in his own way, he embodies the resilience of New Genesis. He's proof that even the ugliest origins don't determine your destiny. But Kirby never lets it be that simple. Orion's victories come with scars, and his triumphs often raise new questions about identity, morality, and the nature of good and evil. Powers-wise, Orion is a powerhouse. Super strength, endurance, agility. He's built for battle. Add in his astroglider, which fires energy blasts and carries him across space, and you've got one of the most fearsome warriors in the fourth world. He's not invincible, but his sheer determination makes him dangerous to even the most powerful foes. And yet, the moments when his face twists into its natural apocalyptic form remind us that power isn't his whole story. It's the battle to control that power that defines him. The best Orion moments are when his rage is on full display, fighting parademons, clashing with Kalibak, or standing face-to-face with Darkseid himself. But also include the quieter beats, Orion in council with HighFather, Orion expressing doubt, Orion struggling with his reflection. Those contrasts make his story resonate.
If Orion is the storm, then Lightray is the sunshine breaking through it. He's one of the most underrated new gods, and honestly, he doesn't always get the spotlight he deserves. But in a mythology that's so often about war, fire, and rage, Lightray brings something different: optimism. He's not naive. He knows exactly what Apocalypse represents, but he chooses to live and fight in a way that emphasizes joy, creativity, and light, literally and figuratively. His real name is Solus, but almost nobody calls him that. He's Lightray because he embodies light. His powers let him absorb and manipulate solar energy, transforming into dazzling beams that let him move at incredible speeds, fire blasts, and basically become a living rocket. But unlike Orion, who thunders across the battlefield like a blunt weapon, Lightray moves like a dancer. He zips, dodges, dazzles, overwhelms enemies with speed and brilliance instead of brute force. Watching him in combat is like watching a fireworks show that just happens to completely demolish parademons. Visually, Kirby designed him with sleekness in mind. Bright costume, flowing lines, no heavy armor. Lightray looks like he belongs to the sky. And he uses that aesthetic to maximum effect. He's flashy, but never in a way that feels arrogant. It's style born out of confidence, a reminder to his allies that even in a world overshadowed by Apocalypse, there's still beauty worth fighting for. Now, what makes Lightray really interesting isn't just his powers, it's his personality. He's one of the few new gods who consistently lean toward compassion, humor, and positivity. While Orion broods over destiny and HighFather contemplates cosmic philosophy, Lightray brings levity. He cracks jokes, he reassures others, and he genuinely tries to make the burden of their eternal conflict lighter. And that's not filler, it's essential. Without him, New Genesis risks being nothing but constant pressure and gloom. With him, there's balance.
He's proof that strength doesn't always have to mean violence. Sometimes it means lifting the spirits of those around you. He and Orion form one of the more fascinating dynamics in the Fourth World. They're close friends, but they couldn't be more different. Orion snarls his way through a battlefield, while Lightray literally lights it up. Orion sees the war as an eternal burden. Lightray sees it as a challenge that can still be met with hope. This contrast makes their partnership so effective. Orion provides raw force, Lightray provides agility and optimism, and together they make an almost unstoppable pair. Some stories even show Lightray deliberately calming Orion down mid-battle, reminding him that he's more than just rage. Lightray's optimism isn't blind, though. He's fully aware of what Darkseid and Apocalypse represent, and he's seen enough horror to know how serious the war is. But he makes a conscious choice to embody joy, because that's how he resists the darkness. In that sense, he's as heroic as anyone else in the Pantheon, just in a way that feels less grim. He proves that in a mythology full of gods who wrestle with destiny, there's still room for hope.
Now, let's talk about the most complicated dinner guest at the table, Metron. He's not a warrior like Orion, not a beam of optimism like Lightray, and definitely not a moral anchor like HighFather. Metron is, well, Metron. He's the embodiment of curiosity, intelligence, and discovery, but without the emotional compass you'd expect from a so-called god of New Genesis. His signature feature is the Mobius chair, a piece of technology that lets him travel anywhere in time and space, granting him knowledge and perspective no one else has. Imagine if Dr. Strange and Elon Musk had a baby who refused to take a side in anything. That's Metron in a nutshell. He shows up, he drops some cryptic wisdom, and then he disappears into the stars again. Metron can kind of come off as a jackass, not because he's evil, but because he's so detached from human emotion, or even new god emotion, that he sometimes looks like he's above it all. He'll sit there while worlds burn, making notes in his cosmic journal, and you just want to shake him and say, "Hey, maybe pick a side, my guy." And that's not me saying he's a villain, he's not. But his demeanor makes him feel like the aloof genius who knows more than you and won't let you forget it. And that's both his strength and his flaw. On the one hand, Metron's knowledge is invaluable. He's uncovered secrets about the Source, about Darkseid, about the very foundations of the DC universe. He sees things no one else does, and when he actually decides to share, it can change the course of history. On the other hand, he doesn't fight, he doesn't commit, and he doesn't always care about consequences. He values knowledge above morality, which is why he often frustrates characters like HighFather, who are making decisions based on ethics and responsibility. But what makes Metron essential, though, is that he represents the curiosity of the Fourth World. Not everyone is defined by rage, light, or leadership. Some are defined by the hunger to understand. And even if he's hard to like, Metron is one of the reasons Kirby's pantheon feels so complete. He's not heroic in a traditional sense, but he gives depth to the mythology. He shows us that being a god doesn't automatically mean being good or even being relatable. Visually, Metron is always shown with that air of distance, the chair, the cosmic backdrops. He doesn't stride into battle, he hovers, observing. And when he does speak, it's with the weight of someone who knows more than anyone else in the room, but won't ever give you the full picture.
If there's one new god who breaks the mold, it's Mr. Miracle. Out of all Jack Kirby's creations, Scott Free might be the most human, even though he's literally a god. And that's the trick, right? Mr. Miracle isn't about throwing punches or blasting cosmic beams. He's about escaping. Escaping traps, escaping destiny, escaping even the brutal upbringing that should have broken him. Let's rewind. Scott Free is the son of HighFather, which you'd think means he's got it made, right? Except, nope. Thanks to the infamous peace pact between New Genesis and Apocalypse, he gets traded as a child to Darkseid. Yeah, Imagine your dad saying, "Son, to keep the galaxy safe, I'm sending you to live with Space Satan." That's Scott's childhood. And he grows up on Apocalypse in Granny Goodness's orphanages, literal torture camps designed to break kids into dark-side soldiers. Most kids don't survive, and if they do, they're loyal, killing machines. But scot-free, he lives up to his name. He escapes. Not just physically, but spiritually. He refuses to let Darkseid define him, refuses to let Granny brainwash him. And that's where Mr. Miracle is born. Now, on paper, Scott-Free's powers are kinda underwhelming compared to other NewGods. He doesn't have Orion's Rage or Metron's Cosmic Chair. What he does have is this genius knack for escapes, a mix of natural skill, NewGod tech, and insane willpower. He can wriggle out of anything. Chains, death traps, cages designed to be inescapable. If Houdini was a god, this is him. But it's more than a gimmick. It's a statement. Scott embodies the idea that no matter how impossible the situation, there's always a way out if you believe, fight, and think cleverly enough. Honestly, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda might be one of the most underrated couples in all of comics. Their love story is forged in the fires of Apocalypse, literally, and it's about freedom versus oppression, hope versus despair. Barda was one of Darkseid's Furies, trained to be his deadliest soldier, but she falls in love with Scott and chooses to follow him instead. Together, they don't just escape Darkseid's planet, they escape the idea that fate is unbreakable. What makes Scott Free amazing is that he's not just the escape artist. He's the guy who proves that even in a world full of gods, destiny, and oppression, you can still write your own story. His whole existence is a rebellion against inevitability. And it resonates, because we've all felt trapped in some way. Mr. Miracle isn't about breaking chains, it's about refusing to accept them in the first place.
Big Bertha. Oh, wait. That's a tank. I mean, Big Barda. Actually, not a bad mix-up, because if you think about it, she kind of is heavy artillery. The difference is Bertha flattens cities. Barda flattens you. Barda is one of the most iconic creations Jack Kirby pulled from his Fourth World Saga, and she's a character who brings raw power and heart in equal measure. Raised on Apocalypse under Granny Goodness, she was bred to be the perfect soldier, one of the female Furies, Darkseid's personal shock troops. And when I say shock troops, I mean the kind of squad that shows up when Darkseid wants not just victory, but pain. But here's where Barda becomes more than just another Fury. She's tough, yes, terrifying, absolutely, but she's also independent. Somewhere in all that fire and training, she kept her own will intact. And that spark is what drew her to Scott Free, Mr. Miracle. Now let's talk about this relationship, because it's one of the best in comics. Scott is the ultimate escape artist, always thinking his way out of impossible situations. Barda? She doesn't need a key. She is the battering ram. And yet, together, they balance each other. Scott brings hope and cleverness. Barda brings strength and unshakable loyalty. It's a classic case of brains and brawn. But the trick is, both are equally brave, equally stubborn, and equally in love. And don't get it twisted, Barda isn't just Mr. Miracle's wife. She's her own legend. With her Mega Rod, which, yes, sounds like something you probably shouldn't Google, she can blast energy, fly, and basically smack around anyone dumb enough to stand in her way. She's gone toe-to-toe with Wonder Woman, held her own against armies, and led the female Furies themselves. If Orion is the god of rage, and Scott is the god of freedom, then Barda is the god of try me and find out. But what makes her shine isn't just the muscle, it's the choice. She chose to walk away from Apocalypse. She chose Scott. And that decision is the biggest rebellion of all. Because nobody walks away from Darkseid. Nobody turns their back on Granny Goodness and lives. Barda did. And she did it for love. That's why their bond is so special. It's not a damsel and hero situation. Barda doesn't need saving. If anything, Scott needs her just as much as she needs him. They're partners,
equals, and sometimes even rivals in how far they'll go to protect each other.